Hi, welcome to this week's Chinuch Hashkafa message. It is Parshas Bechukosai. Now, we all want our children to have a connection to Limud HaTorah. Presumably, we all want them to learn, we want them to learn well, to do well in their learning, and hopefully to develop a gishmak, a pleasure, a sort of interest in learning Torah and continuing to learn even after formal education, so to speak, finishes. That, of course, is tied very much to this week's parsha. We know, of course, Im Bechukosai Teilechu, where the Torah says, if you'll go in my chukim, you'll go in my statutes, which Rashi explains, Shetihu amelim bator, you should work hard in learning Torah. As we know, Torah does not come easy. One has to put in the effort to acquire Torah properly. So here's a couple of things that I want to sort of share with you, and in the context of this discussion, it's also a dvar, sort of a vort or dvar Torah that you can share with your children, and something to reflect upon ourselves, to reflect on ourselves as parents. Often at a Shabbos table, for example, we as parents, we want to make sure that we're doing the responsible things. So we ask our children, what did you learn this week? Where's your parsha sheet? What did the Rabbi or Mora teach you about the parsha, and so on and so forth? Which of course is great, but not all children like to respond, not all children like to repeat things at the table. And I think if children don't, it's not the end of the world. But what we can do is we can set an example of learning, set an example of having a gishmak, a chayis, an enthusiasm in learning. And one of the ways to do that is to show children that we get excited by learning, and we show them amazing things, and we share with them things that we have learned in the past week. In this week's parsha, there's a very fascinating thing. It's just an example of something that fascinates children and probably it inspires their interest more than them having to repeat something they've learned in school, which is not a thing that we shouldn't do. I'm just saying it's not the only thing. So, Bechukosai Teilechu, Rashi proves that it means it's not referring to mitzvahs, it's referring to learning Torah. So the Orach Chaim HaKadosh asks why the word Teilechu then? If it's referring to learning Torah, why the word Teilechu? And the Orach Chaim HaKadosh offers 42 reasons. Now, I'm just using this as an example. Sitting at a Shabbos table and saying, I learned on Orach Chaim HaKadosh this week. And he gives 42 reasons for something. It's already an amazing thing. It's already cooking up an interest. Like, wow, 42 reasons. There's so many different aspects that Torah can offer to explain one pasuk. So I'm suggesting this week, share with them, look up the Orach Chaim first of all, but it's not share with them some of the reasons. For example, Orach Chaim says that it means that we have to learn Torah, Teilechu, even when we're walking. Again, that's a lesson. Learning Torah is important, whether we're sitting down, whether we're walking in the street, to share Torah, Torah ideas. The second reason he gives is about David HaMelech, who says in the pasuk, and the Medrash explains that he explains that his feet would just take him to the Beis HaMedrash as a sort of a natural thing. Or as the Orach Chaim says, that Teilechu means different, when you walk, there's different ways, different pathways. So too, Torah is so rich and deep that there are so many different ways. There's Pshat, there's Remez, there's Drush, and there's Soid. So this is kind of a great way to discuss these different meanings of Bechukosai Teilechu, and also to show how excited we are. Now, it could be a gematria that we find in Balaturim, it could be just a good vort. But we need to show children that we're excited. And of course, we need to also reflect that if we want children to learn, are we setting aside, are we showing a priority of learning? Do they see us, like David HaMelech, do they see us taking our feet and leading us to the Beis HaMedrash? Do we go to Shurim? Do we get excited by learning? Do we get excited by sharing a word? Do they see that by us learning is a top priority, even though we're not in school or we're not in yeshiva? That will obviously rub off. So I guess in summary, what I'm sharing with you is, at a Shabbos table, we need to often discuss the importance of learning, but also to show an example about getting excited about learning. Not so much as to ask them what their homework was or what they did was, but to just informally. Not all parents can learn with children formally. It doesn't always work. Sometimes we need to get other people to do it. But what we can do is we can informally, we can show them, I saw a vort this week. I read a sicha this week. I read a halacha this week. Such an interesting thing, a gematria, an Orach Chaim. This is just one example that I'm sharing with you today. But those kind of things go a long way to infuse children with an excitement and excitement in learning. Have a wonderful day and a good Shabbos.